Hello, it's Fred from Pickleball Guys, and we're back for another video review. In this video, we're going to be reviewing the Ruby Pickleball paddle by 6-0. It's a paddle that has received a lot of praise from a few other popular pickleball channels, and I want to see if it lives up to that hype for myself and give you my honest thoughts. But first, if you haven't already done so, please give us a like and subscribe so that way you don't miss out on any of our pickleball content. We only recently brought in 6-0, despite knowing about them for a while now. We're pretty selective over which brands we bring into RacquetGuys, especially with there being so many brands out there in pickleball. But first, I'd like to quickly talk about some interesting info I found out when I first learned about 6-0. They're an Australian, family-owned pickleball company founded by an engineer and avid pickleball player named Dale Young. Dale and his team were the first to pioneer the thermoforming process of combining a carbon seam edge with a hot mold production. So all the Gen 2 thermoform paddles that we see out there were inspired by Dale and 6-0 revolutionizing paddle technology. They introduced a few different paddle series like the Diamond series, the Edgeless Infinity series, and also a Gem series, which the Ruby is a part of. What makes the Ruby a little more unique is that it's a thermoformed 100% aramid fiber surface paddle. Aramid fiber is a material that is known for its high strength and thermal resilience. So I'm very excited to see how it plays, considering it should be a durable surface with a gritty texture. Ultimately, textured surfaces of raw carbon, as well as these aramid fiber or Kevlar surfaces, are dependent upon peel ply sheets, which are used to imprint texture within the epoxy resin that hardens on the surface. It's the peel ply that creates the textured pattern on the surface of these paddles. I've linked a video down below in the description by John Q. Pickleball, where he breaks down what's inside a paddle and explains the peel ply process better than I can. So that's definitely an interesting video to check out if you want to learn more about how peel ply is used. The specs of the Ruby shows that it weighs approximately 8.2 ounces. It has a paddle length of 16.3 inches, a paddle width of 7.5 to 7.7 inches, depending on where you measure on the face. It gets a little bit wider towards the top. A handle length of 5.5 inches, and a grip size of about 4 1/8 of an inch. 6-0 very recently released a 14mm paddle, but we found out too late to get our pre-orders in on that in time, so we don't have those in yet. However, depending on when you're watching this video, if you check our website, we may very well have them. So I'm sure you can expect a little bit more power out of the 14mm variant, but for this video, we'll be reviewing the 16mm Ruby. Now that I've been able to spend some time testing out the Ruby, let's get into what I would rate it in terms of power, control, spin, and maneuverability. When it comes to power, the 16mm Ruby performs very well. The thermoformed surface helps in this regard. It would likely feel a little too soft if it wasn't thermoformed. Thankfully, even when you hit outside of the sweet spot, it still provides some good power, but the shots that are hit in the sweet spot feel amazing. Baseline to baseline shots felt great, and attacking at the kitchen line also felt great. I would give the Ruby a 9 out of 10 for power. The Ruby's control will also be getting a very good rating here. It felt like an all-around paddle and did everything I wanted it to. It was accurate, provided excellent touch and feel, and ultimately had me feeling confident when hitting my shots. I would give the Ruby a 9 out of 10 in terms of control. Spin is something that stood out for me as well. It gripped the ball very well and allowed me to feel the ball throughout the stroke. When I played around the spin on both my serves or volleying at the kitchen line, it exceeded my expectations. It competes with the 18K surface that I've always found to be the best for spin. I'll actually give the Ruby a 10 out of 10 in terms of spin. I try to consider the maneuverability rating as it pertains to the majority of pickleball players. It weighs over 8 ounces, which for me isn't a problem. But what's maneuverable for me isn't always maneuverable for someone else. It's not lightweight by any means, but for an 8.2 ounce paddle, it doesn't feel that heavy either. Its shape being wider towards the top isn't as aerodynamic as some other paddles out there, but it certainly optimizes the sweet spot a little bit more. It's at least rounded at the top and angled at the throat, so there is some aerodynamic functioning going on. I would give the Ruby an 8.5 out of 10 in terms of maneuverability. 6-0's Ruby paddle might be a contender for my top 5 paddles. I know I've released top 5 pickleball paddle lists for control as well as power last year, and I'll likely update those lists with new videos for 2025, as there's been many new paddles launched since then. The Ruby felt like it provided everything I wanted out of a paddle, and it has a very clean design and look to it. It has a nice balance within its shape, not quite being a wide body and not quite being an elongated paddle, but having elements of both. It's definitely very user-friendly and can be used for all levels of play. I'll have to wait and see how long the surface lasts. I mean, the demo paddle I use has already been taken out and used a few times, yet still feels brand new. I can confidently say that it beats out a lot of paddles that are priced higher than it, So that proves the point that higher price tags don't necessarily equate to better. To test if there's any noticeable difference between aramid fiber and carbon fiber, I brought out 6-Zero's double black diamond 16mm paddle, which has the same shape and specs, with the only difference being that it's a raw carbon fiber surface versus the aramid fiber of the Ruby. Honestly, I could barely tell the difference. There might have been a little bit more dwell time on the ball with the paddle face of the Ruby, but I doubt many players are going to notice that difference. I want to keep playing with it, so for me that's a really good sign. If you can get your hands on one, I can confidently say you're going to like it too. Thank you for watching. Please let us know in the comments if you have any questions or if there are other products you'd like to see us review in the future. You can find the 6-Zero Ruby pickleball paddle available here at pickleballguys.ca or pickleballguys.com. Come check us out.